And you know what? I started to feel so much better. And when I started to feel worse, when I started to feel again like I was losing myself, I always could tie it to I had stopped paying attention. I had stopped being healthy in one of those areas, mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. And as soon as I would start up again in that area that I had let slack, which was usually physical or spiritual, as soon as I would start that up again, I started feeling so much better. Now, it didn't change the pandemic at all, but it changed my ability to deal with everything that happened this year. It changed my ability to show up and do my best every day. Entonces, hola friends, hi amigos, ¿cómo están? Feliz sábado. How are you? Happy Saturday. This is, I am Nikki of Nikki Bannister Language Coaching, and I'm here to bring you a little bilingual conversation about how we're doing and what it means to be healthy with episode 80 of Spanish Saturday. Yo soy Nikki de Nikki Bannister Language Coaching y estoy aquí para el episodio 80 de Spanish Saturday. Y en esta conversación bilingüe quiero hablar de cómo estás, cómo estamos y qué significa ser saludable hoy en día en la vida y en el aprendizaje de idiomas. Pero empezamos con la semana. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo va tu fin de semana? Tu semana, si no es el sábado cuando miras esto. Entonces, ¿cómo va tu día? So, let's just start with catching up a little bit. How was your week? How's your weekend going? If it's not actually Saturday while you are watching this episode of Spanish Saturday, then great. How's your day going? Today's been great. Today's been going well for me. I've knocked a few things off my list. Got a couple more that I need to knock off still. Hola! Facebook doesn't show me they don't show me who you are anymore. So if you want me to know you're here, feel free to say hi, say hola in the comments for me, and feel free to participate. I love hearing your thoughts, reading your comments. Entonces, Facebook ya no me dice cuando alguien está en vivo conmigo, no me dice quién es. Entonces, si estás en vivo conmigo, por favor, siéntete libre a decirme hola en los comentarios o hi, porque siempre me gusta leer los comentarios y también conversar contigo. Pero este día ya me va muy bien. Yo he estado logrando algunas tareas que yo tuve, pero todavía tengo unos más para completar. He estado haciendo mucho de yoga esta semana porque tengo dolor de espalda. Ya llevo como 2 meses con este dolor de espalda. Entonces yo he estado haciendo más yoga para ayudarme. Y mi meta es hacer el yoga en la mañana como la primera cosa cuando me levanto y luego en la tarde antes de dormir también. Entonces tengo otro video que voy a hacer con mi inspiración, la inspiradora Melissa Bender, luego esta tarde. Voy a poner un comentario o un enlace en la descripción del video, en los comentarios para ti, por si acaso. Por si las moscas, por si acaso que te interesa. All right, so my day is going pretty well. How's yours going? Leave me a comment, let me know. I knocked some things off my list, have a few more to do. One of those things is yoga. I've been doing a lot more yoga this week because I've had lower back pain. I've had lower back pain for years, if we're going to be real with it, but I have had really bad lower back pain. I had to stop running for a couple of months now. It's been since the 3rd week of October, so we're going on a couple of months, and it sucks. So I've been really committing to stretching, and the easiest way for me to do that is to do more yoga. And so I try to make it the first thing I do, one of the first things I do when I get up in the morning, do a little bit of yoga and do it again before bed on top of my usual activity. So I did yoga this morning, and I'm going to do another flow with Melissa Bender, who's amazing. If you don't know who she she is. All her fitness videos are free. I'll put a link in the comments or in the description for you. But I'm going to be doing her yoga flow this evening before I go to bed. And that has something to do with what I want to talk about today. So tell me how you're doing. And tell me if you feel like you're healthy. Do you feel like you're healthy right now? How healthy do you feel like you are? What comes up for you when I ask that question? Entonces, for some people, wine would be an example of, yes, health, and wine would be an example of, no, alcohol, bad health. Let me know. Entonces, con la conversación de yoga, mi nueva actividad y todo esto, yo he estado haciendo mi yoga y esto es una buena manera de empezar la conversación que quiero tener contigo en este episodio sobre cómo estás, cómo te sientes, cómo te encuentras y también te sientes saludable. ¿Te sientes saludable? Ahora, ¿qué significa? ¿Cuán saludable te sientes? ¿Qué significa para ti qué piensas cuando yo te pregunto si te sientes saludable o no? Y, por ejemplo, para algunas personas, el vino es un buen ejemplo, ¿no? Para algunas personas sí, es muy saludable tomar una copa de vino tinto como yo, pero para unos no, el alcohol no es nada saludable, entonces es diferente para diferentes personas, ¿no? Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for the comment. I'm doing really well. I'm going to talk a little bit about health in general, actually, and how I'm doing better than I was. So a little spoiler there, but so good to see you, and thank you. I really hope you guys are well, too. Would love to hear an update. So good to see you. Y entonces, la salud es diferente para diferentes personas, pero ¿qué significa ser saludable? ¿Qué significa estar saludable también? So, okay, another one. And down. Focus. So, to be totally honest, talking about health, the pandemic, now the actual pandemic and the coronavirus that happened this year, it started long before March, but in March of 2020 was really when everything shut down in my world. I live in California. That's when like everything kind of shut down. We went into a hard shutdown and a quarantine period, and that's really when it felt like the pandemic started for us. And it's hard for me to totally remember how I was doing prior to the pandemic, because that was kind of like the turning point and the part I remember. But very quickly in March, I remember at some point in March feeling like I was not doing okay and feeling like I was losing myself, feeling like I didn't feel like me anymore, and I was a little freaked out by that. I was a little scared. And I'll talk more about what that looks like for me. Entonces, para ser completamente franca, sincera con ustedes, cuando empezó la pandemia, y la verdad es que la pandemia, el coronavirus, empezó mucho antes de cuando empezó, cuando yo sentí los efectos aquí donde yo vivo en California. Pero para mí, la pandemia, la cuarentena, todo esto, el encierro, más o menos empezó en marzo de este año, en marzo de 2020. Y esto fue cuando yo sentí todos los efectos y la pandemia para mí comenzó. Y no recuerdo muy bien el mes de febrero, para ser muy honesta, no recuerdo muy bien porque todo fue muy diferente, mis planes, mis pensamientos antes de la pandemia, ¿no? Pero después de que empezó, yo recuerdo muy bien que en algún día en marzo, entonces no mucho después de que empezó la pandemia y la cuarentena, recuerdo que empezando en marzo yo empezaba a tener días en que yo no sentí como yo y no sentí no me sentí saludable, me sentí de verdad perdida, me sentí como yo no estaba bien y yo no era mí misma, yo no era la misma persona. Y quiero explicar un poco más de esto, que yo me sentí perdida y no todos los días, pero con más frecuencia. Y yo perdí las ganas, las agallas de hacer nada, de hacer mi trabajo, de hacer el ejercicio, de hacer nada. Yo no tenía ganas y solo quería estar en el sofá todo el día mirando la televisión, y esto me dio un poco de miedo, porque esto no soy yo. Yo no soy así. Quizás un día por mes o algo así, sí, cuando necesito un día de descanso, sí. Pero no soy yo todo el tiempo, y con más y más frecuencia yo tuve días en que yo no quería salir o dejar el sofá. So this is what it looked like when I say that I started to feel lost. I didn't feel like myself starting in like March, like pretty much right away. When the pandemic started, I felt like I just wasn't me. And what that looked like for me is I lost all motivation. I was deeply unmotivated. And I was suddenly deeply unmotivated to do my work. And I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I run my own business, and I do my own business because it's my passion, because I'm crazy passionate about it. I'm passionate about being a language coach. I'm passionate about serving others and helping them reach their goals and making an impact in their life and helping them live their best bilingual life. And I had none of that. I felt deeply unmotivated, and I felt like I couldn't get off the couch. Like I felt like I didn't want to do anything except just tune out. I wanted to tune out and just let time pass without being fully aware of it or fully conscious or present for it. And that scared me because it didn't feel like me. It felt like Nikki was a little lost, and it was starting to happen more and more frequently. Like, sure, some days, like one day a month, sure, I want to have a day where I don't get off the couch and I watch TV all day and whatnot. Sure, that's normal. But I was starting to have days like this more and more often, and they wouldn't be constant. Like, I'd have some normal days spread in there where I did feel more like me, but then I'd go back to that feeling, and that's what led me to really think about my health. And first of all, I felt like I needed help, because I didn't feel like me, and so I didn't feel like I could save me. I didn't feel like I could solve me. But I really started to think about my health. And while I'm completely open to getting help from other sources, including medication if need be, though I've never been on it before, I was already seeing a therapist, and being a coach can coach myself in a lot of different ways. And I just thought, let me approach this question of health and what it means to me. And this is what I came to, that health for me is a holistic combination of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. And I thought, I don't feel like me. I don't feel healthy. This doesn't feel healthy. This doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. How am I going to get healthy again? How am I going to get better? And I thought, well, it's not just one thing. It's not just about exercising more. It's not just one thing. It is all four. It's my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. So let's talk about that and what that looks like in life and language learning. Entonces, yo, que no quería dejar mi asiento en el sofá, yo estaba sentada ya en el sofá y pensando como, me siento perdida, no me siento mí misma, yo no me siento yo misma, y yo quiero mejorar, no quiero quedarme así, no quiero mantener este estado como yo quiero que el tiempo pase y yo no estoy completamente presente o consciente por ello. Entonces yo pensé, ok, no me siento yo misma y también no me siento saludable. Me siento enferma, como yo tengo algo y estoy tratando de dormir hasta que me pueda despertarme o hasta que me pueda despertar y sentirme mejor. Fue como esto, pero yo no estaba enferma con nada física, entonces yo decidí, ok, voy a concentrar en mi salud. ¿Y qué significa para mí? Es una combinación holística de 4 cosas. La salud es 4 cosas, hay 4 partes a la salud. Es la salud física, es la salud mental, emocional y espiritual. Y yo no me sentí bien en ninguno de estos áreas más antes en este año, cuando empezó la pandemia. So I wasn't feeling great in any of those areas earlier this year. And when the pandemic kicked off, I wasn't feeling emotionally strong, mentally healthy, physically great, or spiritually strong, or spiritually at peace. And I think that's an interesting point to start from just right there, because I know that there are some people that wouldn't focus on the spiritual side, that wouldn't see that as part of their practice. And likewise, I'm sure there are other people too that are a little more removed from the physical, that are all up here and in here, but not so much in their physical bodies. And so if you are ignoring, like if your approach to health doesn't include all 4 of those, mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, then I just want to challenge you that if you're doing what you're doing and you're not feeling, or not challenge you, but ask you, if you're doing what you're doing and you're not feeling totally healthy, then you might want to consider an area that you haven't been considering. You might want to consider, if you don't usually have a spiritual practice or connection at all, what it might look like to grow one, or pay a little attention to that. If you haven't been doing anything physical, but you've been really focused on the mental and emotional aspects and physical aspects of health, and spiritual aspects of health, then you might want to say, let me try seeing what this does if I get more in touch with my physical health. Try it. If you're not already on those 4 planes of health, if you're not already incorporating those 4, I just want you to keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this conversation. Entonces, esto es un punto para empezar, que yo considero la salud ser 4 cosas. Sí, la salud mental, emocional, física y espiritual. Pero quizás para ti no es estas 4. Entonces, yo solo quiero preguntar, mientras tenemos el resto de esta conversación, que si estás solo enfocando en lo interno y no estás considerando lo físico, o si consideras el físico pero no tienes una práctica espiritual, entonces que consideres durante esta conversación creando una nueva práctica, enfocando en un nuevo área de tu salud. Si no te sientes completamente saludable, contenta y feliz. Muy bien. Ok. Entonces, creo que esta conversación es muy importante porque nadie está bien. Pues no nadie, pero muchas personas no están bien ahora. Los estudiantes no están bien. Los maestros no están bien. Yo leo las noticias todos los días. Yo escucho a mis amigos. Yo miro en las redes sociales. Mucha gente no está bien. Y la salud está sufriendo. Entonces, por favor, que hagamos una evaluación de nuestra propia salud holística, para considerar dónde necesitamos mejorar, enfocar más para tener un frente que es lo más fuerte que puede ser para enfrentar a estas cosas que nos trae este año y que nos va a traer el próximo año. So, the reason I wanted to start with this conversation in this episode of our conversation today is because so many people are not okay right now. So many people are not feeling themselves, are not healthy, are not well, are not doing well, are not feeling well. Their health is suffering. And I see it. Just before filming this episode, I read this really sad news article. It's too, like, I'm not even going to bring it up here because that's not what I want the focus to be. But suffice it to say, students are struggling. Right? Students are struggling. Distance learning. Oh my gosh. Teachers are not okay. That was the headline in the New York Times. Teachers are not okay right now, and I completely understand why. Mothers, new mothers, mothers of small children, all mothers, parents are challenged. So many people are not doing their best or not doing well right now. And so what a great time to look at what it means to do well, what it means to be healthy, and how that's a holistic approach, because we want to have the strongest possible front to face whatever it is, to confront whatever it is this year throws at us, whatever it is that's gonna happen next year. We want to start from the healthiest place possible. And that was my attitude as I really started to feel like I wasn't myself, like I was losing myself in March and April, in the spring of 2020. I thought, I'm totally open to help outside of myself too, but I feel a responsibility to take my health, my holistic health, and do everything I can to be as healthy as possible in each area: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And that's when I really committed to doing physical exercise on a daily basis. But you know what? It's not perfect. I skip some days. As close to a daily basis as possible. And my spiritual health. I hadn't been doing devotionals. I hadn't been reading my Bible. I hadn't been investing time in my spiritual peace and growth and journey. And so I recommitted to doing that also. Now, I mentioned I was seeing a therapist. That was part of my mental and emotional health, and I continued to do that. And I also spent more time journaling, meditating, making sure that I took some time to be still, to calm my thoughts, to give my mind a rest and give it some space, and to check in with my emotions every day and let myself go through them and process them. And you know what? I started to feel so much better. And when I started to feel worse, when I started to feel again like I was losing myself, I always could tie it to I had stopped paying attention. I had stopped being healthy in one of those areas: mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. And as soon as I would start up again in that area that I had let slack, which was usually physical or spiritual, as soon as I would start that up again, I started feeling so much better. Now, it didn't change the pandemic at all, but it changed my ability to deal with everything that happened this year. It changed my ability to show up and do my best every day. Entonces, para mí, eso es exactamente lo que yo hice cuando en marzo, en mayo, en abril, en la primavera de este año, cuando yo empecé a sentirme empecé a sentir que yo no era yo misma, que yo me sentía un poco perdida, que yo decidí, yo voy a aceptar completamente la ayuda y el apoyo de otras fuentes afuera de yo, pero yo siento una responsabilidad de hacer todo lo que yo pueda a hacer la versión más sana de yo misma que yo puedo ser. Y entonces yo decidí enfocar en estos 4 áreas de mi salud mental, emocional, física y espiritual. Y yo noté que yo había estado... yo había estado dejando caer mi salud espiritual y física, que yo no estaba haciendo el ejercicio regularmente, moviéndome el cuerpo regularmente, y tampoco estaba leyendo. Yo asistía a la iglesia todas las semanas, pero yo no estaba entre los domingos. No hice mucho solo entre yo y Dios. Para mi práctica espiritual, yo no hacía nada. Entonces yo decidí, ok, si necesito más ayuda, pero yo voy a hacer mi parte, voy a hacer lo que yo pueda. Entonces yo empecé a leer mi Biblia y tener una devocional todos los días. Yo empecé a hacer ejercicio, a ejercerme todos los días. Pero quiero mencionar que no soy perfecta, que soy humana. Entonces, claro que me faltó unos días. Y la verdad es que yo vi los resultados casi inmediatamente, que yo me sentí mucho mejor después de poner el esfuerzo en mi salud holística. Pero cuando de nuevo yo tenía un día muy difícil, 2 días muy difíciles, donde yo me sentía perdida otra vez o perdiendo yo misma, yo noté que también me había faltado unos días siguientes con mi práctica espiritual o con mi ejercicio físico. Entonces yo cometí otra vez, ok, voy a hacer estas cosas, voy a hacer mi mejor. Y cuando empecé de nuevo con mi práctica, entonces yo mejoré también de mi ánimo, de mi espíritu, de mi bienestar. Entonces, if that speaks to you, if you feel like you haven't felt totally yourself, if you felt like you're struggling, in what area have you not been as healthy? Mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually? What feels like it's weak? What feels like it's struggling? Where could you boost yourself up more? And this isn't just for life. This is for everything. This applies to, we are holistic creatures. We are not just our minds. We are not just our hearts. We're not just our thoughts. We're not just our emotions. We're not just our spirit and our soul. And we're not just our bodies. We are all of those things working in unison. And so even as language learners, this applies. Entonces, esto, primero a preguntarte que si te sientes que puedes hacer mejor, que puedes estar haciendo mejor, que no te sientes tú mejor en este momento, entonces con estos 4 áreas de tu salud, ¿en cuál te sientes más débil? ¿En cuál te falta la buena salud más? ¿Y cómo puedes corregir esto? ¿Cómo puedes poner más esfuerzo en este área de tu salud? Y eso no es solo para la vida, es para todo, para el aprendizaje de idiomas, para todos nuestros esfuerzos. ¿Por qué? Somos humanos y esto significa que somos estas 4 partes, que no somos solo nuestros pensamientos y nuestra mente, no somos solo nuestros corazones y emociones, no somos solo nuestro espíritu y el alma que está conectado con Dios, pero no somos solo nuestros cuerpos y presencia física en este planeta. Somos humanos, somos los 4 en colaboración. Entonces, en cada cosa que hacemos, tenemos estos cuatro que pueden funcionar, que pueden apoyar a los otros. Y para mis estudiantes, hacemos mucho, hablamos de las emociones y también usamos las emociones en nuestro viaje en un segundo idioma. Y, por supuesto, es un proceso aprender otro idioma, es muy mental, vamos a decir lo que pensamos con frecuencia, vamos a compartir esto y hablamos del espíritu también y de esta práctica y la conexión, la importancia de Dios en diferentes culturas, prácticas, todo esto. Pero el área que pienso que les falta a mis estudiantes es el área físico, porque todas mis clases están en línea. Entonces yo he decidido empezar a hacer algo nuevo con mis estudiantes y añadir esta parte en nuestra práctica, en nuestros viajes en un segundo idioma, en el nuevo semestre que empieza en enero, el semestre de idiomas, el semestre de la primavera que yo ofrezco a mis estudiantes en español. Voy a empezar una práctica con español con movimiento físico, porque pienso que es muy importante incorporar todos los áreas de nuestros seres en la práctica en el viaje, para tener más éxito, para recibir más apoyo y para disfrutar más del viaje en una manera holística. So, for my language students and in the language learning process in general, if you're not one of my students, this still applies to you. Remembering that we are these holistic beings, how can you incorporate all of those areas into your language journey? And so for my students, we're really good in 3 of them. We're really good in 2 of them. We're good in 1 of them, and we've been struggling in 1. So we're really good in the emotional and the mental. We definitely check in, and every single class I'm checking in with my students. I'm asking them how they're doing, but we also use those emotions and recognize how those emotions affect us and our language learning abilities and use them and incorporate them into our language journey. And with the mental too, of course, language learning is also a mental process, but we're sharing our thoughts all the time. We're definitely using our thoughts. Those are going on a lot with us. And there's also the spiritual side to it, incorporating that into how we're doing and into our practice, but also into, the process of learning about other cultures and learning language and the things that we're reading. There's definitely a spiritual side too, and that comes up in our conversations. And it comes up in some of the coaching and the advice that I'll give to my students. But I think the area, we could do better in the spiritual. But I think the area that I've most missed with my students is the physical. Is that physical part of us as we're going on a language journey, because all of my classes are online, and that's so great in so many ways. But it means we're not physically present with each other, and it also means I've kind of left giving physical instruction by the wayside, and I've decided no more of that, because it's so important. Also because I know from personal experience, from being a coach, from being a teacher, that incorporating a holistic approach into our learning supports us and helps us reach greater success. So something I'm starting with my students in the spring language semester for all of my Spanish students currently enrolled and going to be enrolled starting in January is a physical practice in our language learning. That's something that I pretty much stopped doing when I stopped doing in-person classes, that I'm going to start reincorporating as a warm-up that involves physical movement, responding in our second language with physical movement to help warm up our bodies and our brains for our time spent in another language. I am so excited, and this is what I love about just continuing to do the work that I do and be a life and be a language coach, is to be able to find ways to always improve add more value, and help make the journey better for me and for my students. So that's a change that I'm making now, literally decided to make as I was prepping this episode for you all. I would love to hear what changes you feel like might most benefit you to take a holistic approach to living your best life in 1, 2, or more languages this year, next year. Let me know in the comments. Entonces, esto es el cambio que yo voy a hacer con mis estudiantes. Y de verdad yo decidí que, wow, pues es un área donde yo puedo mejorar con la práctica física que tengo con mis estudiantes de español. Podemos incorporar esto aún más, porque yo dejé de dar instrucciones y a tener una clase física cuando ya no tenía clases en persona, cuando todas mis clases estaban en línea. Pero este semestre voy a cambiar esto. Vamos a tener una opción de empezar cada clase con un poco de movimiento físico en respuesta, respondiendo a el lenguaje, el segundo idioma y moviéndonos el cuerpo para calentar, para empezar a poner las mentes y las emociones y todo juntos en el proceso, en el viaje de aprender otro idioma. Entonces, es un cambio que yo estoy tomando, que yo estoy haciendo. Entonces, dime, ¿cuál cambio este episodio, esta conversación te inspiró a hacer? ¿Cómo puedes cambiar para ser aún más saludable holísticamente en tu vida, en tus esfuerzos, en tus metas? Dime en los comentarios. Sí. Y yo dije algo más en inglés que olvido en este momento en español. I know. Sí. ¿Por qué? Si podemos ser holísticamente saludable, y podemos, pero ¿cuándo estamos holísticamente saludable? Entonces es aún más fácil, tenemos más éxito. Es una parte integral para vivir, esencial, para vivir nuestras mejores vidas en un idioma, en 2 idiomas o más, en cualquier idioma. Hay que ser saludable, ¿no? Ok, muchísimas gracias por acompañarme en esta conversación y este episodio. Nos vemos el próximo sábado para el próximo episodio de Spanish Saturday. Hasta entonces, que tengas una semana sana y feliz. I will see you next Saturday for our next episode of Spanish Saturday. Thanks so much for joining me in the episode and the conversation today. Until then, have a healthy and happy week. I will see you then. Hasta luego. Bye.